Welcome to the Bookies Plus weekly betting show where you'll get free NFL picks for week 13 from 4 of our gambling experts. Now, you can also find free picks at bookies.com/picks. Again, bookmark that bookies.com/picks because not just NFL free picks, we got you covered for just about any sport you like to gamble on. Don't forget, we'll have a new episode of the show every Wednesday. This week's Tuesday because of the holiday, but it's Wednesday for the remainder of the NFL season. And this week, we'll have picks from Bill Speros, the senior betting analyst for bookies.com. Got Adam, the ATM Thompson, one of the nation's premier handicappers. Adam's been over 60% NFL in his picks in the last 3 years. Got Nick the Whale Whalen in the industry for over a decade, focused on NBA, NFL. You know him with RotoWire, does spots on Decent and DraftKings. And I'm Jim Coventry. All right, Thanksgiving week. Let's get rolling. We'll start with the Thanksgiving slate. Bill, why don't you tell us about that Cowboys-Giants game?
Okay, first things first. This is a beer hat, right? And I am drunk. I'm putting this on. I'm drunk because I'm picking the Dallas Cowboys. They haven't won at home, but they seem to put it together against Washington. Mike McCarthy is getting talked up for next year. The good thing about this game is it's on at 4:30, which means at least half the nation would have already eaten. The tryptophan will be kicking in. You'll be sort of dozing off. It's a perfect doze-off game. The rest of the country is going to lose its appetite for football by watching this. But look, the Giants quit. They quit for the year on Sunday. They got embarrassed at home. I mean, Baker Mayfield's doing his Tommy cutlets. I don't even know if Brian Daboll is going to make it through the season. You have 3 teams in the NFL that are perfect get-right opportunities: the Jets, the Giants, the Patriots. And I think Dallas found something last week, and I just think they're going to get that first win of the year at home. And I like them to cover on this number below a touchdown. I don't see the Giants even getting in the end zone here.
Bill, I love that hat. I think Homer Simpson would be proud as well. It's a great, fantastic hat there. Sticking with the Thanksgiving theme, Adam Thompson. Oh, anybody else on the Cowboys-Giants?
I think it has to be a Cowboys pick for me. It's more of a stay away, but I think the Tommy DeVito experiment last week went about as we expected, right? I mean, that was a game in which they didn't pick up their first third down conversion until like 5 minutes into the third quarter. He was just getting beaten down throughout that entire game, almost got knocked out of the game late. And, I'm high on this Buccaneers team in general, but we just saw no fight from the New York Giants. And they kind of messaged that to us throughout the week, right? We heard from everybody on the team saying, yeah, I don't know if this guy is the best option right now. And I think that's a pretty difficult sell to the rest of that roster. Malik Neighbors complaining about his targets after the game. I think we want to be careful not to overvalue Dallas based on this bizarre game that they almost lost at the end against Washington. But the Cowboys have to be the side here if you're playing this one.
Adam Thompson, why don't you take us through that cold Thursday night Thanksgiving game between the Packers and the Dolphins?
Yeah, everybody in Wisconsin will appreciate Bill's hat as well. Anybody with Wisconsin ties, which Bill has some Wisconsin ties, if I recall collegiately. Anyway, yeah. So Thursday night, Thanksgiving night at Lambeau Field. The spread's about 3 right now. And Miami is surging. They're playing very well right now. They're working on all cylinders, but you got the whole cold weather dynamic, and you can say it's a farce. It's just a thing. But, I mean, Tua, he's 0-4 straight up. When the temperatures are under 40, they're expected to be around 30 for this game time. He's failed to cover in those games by an average of 18 points a game. The last time Miami won any game under 40 degrees, Ryan Tannehill was their quarterback. I think it was 11 years ago. So, stigmas are there because they're there, because they're true. They need to get through that. The Packers are playing very well right now as well. That big play offense, I think, is going to have opportunities, especially when it gets later, it gets colder, it gets windier. And Tua, I think, is going to have problems throwing the ball downfield. He's not a long-range thrower anyway, and this is not going to help his situation, especially if they get hit a few times. There's nowhere to hide from that cold. So I think it's going to be rough going for Miami, at least for this 1 week. I am high on Miami overall. No Jair Alexander probably is going to be an issue, I think, for Green Bay. But the spread is good enough. I like the Packers to cover at home at night.
And another injury note, Romeo Dobbs suffered a concussion on Sunday. There's obviously a long shot, but it seems very unrealistic that he might play, just injured. And with the weather, you're looking at wind chills 18 to 20. And I always say with Tua's arm, it's not a howitzer, it's a pop gun. It's going to be kind of tough. So anybody else have a word on that game? All right, we will move on. Nick, you've got the Black Friday game. You got some Kansas City. You got some Las Vegas Raiders. What are you thinking here?
I want to be very clear that, we're doing a service to the viewers here, trying to give picks for Thanksgiving and Black Friday. This is not a game that would make my Circa Million card by any means, but if I got to make a play on Raiders Chiefs, we got it at 13.5 earlier in the week. The number is now down to 12.5. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it has to be Raiders for me. I took the bait with KC last week. They end up needing a last-second field goal again to beat the Carolina Panthers. I thought the offensive line performance, the defensive performance from Kansas City was extremely concerning. Now, do they repeat that 2 weeks in a row? Probably not. You'd like to think they don't get caught off guard by a bad team in back-to-back weeks. They are back at home for this game, but the Kansas City Chiefs just don't blow teams out. They do not. I truly don't know if they're capable of it at this point. And, if they get Isaiah Pacheco back on Friday, maybe that adds some much needed explosion to this offense. But ultimately, I do think with the number that's creeping up on 2 touchdowns here, I think the Raiders, who've already kept a game within a touchdown against the Chiefs this season, can be frisky enough to just make this a respectable finish. We got a low total here at 42.5. The big caveat on the Raiders side of things is that they will not have Gardner Minshew. He's likely done for the year with a broken collarbone, but luckily, Aiden O'Connell is trending towards starting. If this was Desmond Ridder, no chance. I am taking the Raiders. We saw the Desmond Ridder experience last week at the end of that game. Did not go well. I don't think there's a massive drop-off from Minshew to O'Connell. I do think Minshew is the better option, but AOC is not significantly worse. And, this Raiders team, that they always tend to start fast. We saw it last week against Denver as well. They usually, they're not a team that's like down 17-0 early and they have to scratch and claw their way back in. In no way do I expect the Raiders to ever threaten to win this game. I think they could keep it within 13 because I don't see the Chiefs running away in what should be another low-scoring game.
Anybody else have a comment on that game?
8 of Kansas City's 10 wins are 1 scores. I think that's all you need to know.
Let's make it 9 of 11 or 9 of 10.
Let's do it,
yeah,
boys.
9 of 11. Yeah, I think so. I love that. All right. I had the last Thanksgiving game. The Bears, I'm going to go with them plus 10.5 against the Lions. Look, I was skeptical after Shane Waldron got fired, the offensive coordinator, and Thomas Moore got bumped up, that there would be any tangible difference. You need training camps to do that. Well, in the 2 weeks Caleb Williams has played with his new coordinator, you could tell the focus is get the ball out quickly or tuck it and run quickly. And also, they had that offensive line. They're pulling the guards and the tackles, setting up some real nice screen pass blocking. It's been very fun to watch. And it wasn't 2 cupcake games. They played the Packers, and they scored enough, and they played the Vikings. They took them over him, a lot of late scoring. But nonetheless, the Bears offense looks like it has at least a pulse, and they're playing the Lions. Lions play second highest rate of man-to-man coverage in the league. And I believe the Bears receivers have an advantage over those corners. I also believe with the amount of blitzing, and it's a high rate of blitz this team uses, that when that happens, so you got man-to-man, the corners' backs are turned. So that means Caleb can run. If there's a blitz coming and he sees a hole and he's shown the ability to be nimble, he can get extra yardage and extend plays. I'm excited about it. Bears won't be able to run here. Not worried. Defensively, look, the Lions are happy to run the ball and call it a day. Bears pass defense isn't one you like to mess with a lot. I think the Lions are going to have a little bit of a lead, keep it close. Montgomery should play with the shoulder, but if he doesn't, they got Jahmyr Gibbs. Whether they use one or both, they're fine. I just think this game stays close throughout. The Bears do enough to keep it close, and I think 10.5 is a number I like because I think that the Lions might win it by 7. I think it's actually less than that, but 10.5, give me that. Anybody else have a comment on that game?
I think your handicap is spot on there, Jim. I think you bring up some good numbers. Detroit, top 5 in the NFL in blitz rate. They are also dead last in the NFL in terms of yards per carry given up to quarterbacks this season. And we have seen Caleb Williams, I think, be a lot more decisive over these last couple of weeks. I've been really impressed. I know this is not what you want to hear, Adam, as a Packers fan. Caleb Williams playing well, but I mean, the amount of big time throws he made last week. I mean, have you ever seen a game in which we've had more defenders like diving at balls and just barely missing them? It felt like every single throw Caleb Williams is fitting in perfectly, as Harrison Smith and Andrew Van Ginkel are fully laying out to try to knock it down. I do wonder if that bubble bursts, excuse me, at some point, but I think you have to be really impressed with the way Caleb has been trending the last 2 weeks.
All right, we are through the holiday games. We're in round 2. We'll start out both Bill and Nick like the Seahawks against the Jets. Bill started out and Nick will pile on.
Nick's going to give you a lot of numbers and in-depth analysis. I said earlier there are 3 get-right teams in the NFL. The good thing is the Seahawks, they don't need to get right. They kept the Cardinals out of the end zone. And Aaron Rodgers is sort of the football equivalent of Kyler Murray's grandfather right now. And the Jets continue to impress with their dysfunction. They fired their GM on the bye. Aaron Rodgers is like that guy in the old Twilight Zone episode who dies and he gets everything he wants. And then he's like, oh, my God, what did I do? And then all of a sudden he starts going crazy because he got everything he wants. And he thinks he went to heaven. It turns out he went to the other place. And Aaron Rodgers got everything he wants, and he's in the other place, which is the Jets. No. Geno Smith, he played in New York. The Seahawks, this is like going east to Seattle. I'm not concerned about weather. I'm not concerned about wind. They're just going to run the ball. And the Jets are going to continue their catastrophe. That's even bigger than the Giants' catastrophe because they got Aaron Rodgers.
To be a New York fan, Nick Whalen, go ahead and pile on here.
Yeah, this one, I was looking at some look-ahead lines on Sunday afternoon, and at one point the Jets were slight favorites in this game. That has quickly been market corrected, as you would expect. But I still don't even mind just playing Seattle on the money line here. If you think there is some fight left in this Jets team, it's more of a fade of the Jets than it is any faith in Seattle. I mean, this is a Seattle team that is still struggling to run the ball, and that worries me a little bit. Just 65 rushing yards this past week against Arizona, but the Jets defense continues to coast on reputation. This is not a good run defense specifically. They are 23rd in run defense EPA on the year. There are still some names on that defense. These are names that are not playing at the same level that they were in years past. And offensively, it's a Jets team that, again, has names. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers. We recognize these names. They're not playing well. They have failed to crack 300 yards of total offense in 3 consecutive games. And I think the Seattle defense is one of those units that, some weeks they can look like they're a bottom 10, bottom 5 unit. Other weeks, like the past 2, they can look like they're a borderline top 5 unit in the NFL. But what I like about playing the Jets, and Bill kind of alluded to this, with them being a get-right team, they don't require the opponent to play a perfect game by any means. Seattle doesn't have to play an A-plus game here to go in and win on the road at New York. I mean, they could play a B-plus game as long as Geno Smith, can avoid the crushing mistakes, which is a big if, because he had one through a pick in the end zone this past week against Arizona. If he can just avoid doing that, I think Seattle should be able to coast here. I don't even know if playing at home is a real advantage for the Jets at this point. Like, you watch a Jets home game and there's like an uncomfortable energy, right? It's like you could feel it early. Like when they inevitably go 3 and out on their first 3 drives, the crowd almost turns on this team. Aaron Rodgers is clearly more injured than he's willing to admit, than the team has been letting on. I don't really see the case here for why the Jets are less than a field goal dog.
Well, Adam, you're going to go with the Vikings next, and if you wanted to comment on that Seahawks game, feel free as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna fade Arizona after seeing them last week. I like Seattle last week as well. Arizona had been playing well; they had won 4 in a row, but last week their offense accounted for more points for the Seahawks than it did for itself, and that's kind of the Arizona I've been expecting and waiting for all season long. I feel like this is just kind of not a smoke and mirrors team, but just kind of overachieved, just kind of playing above its weight a little bit. And I think the Vikings. They're 9-2. Their back-to-back losses came in the middle of the season, against good teams, and they played extremely poorly. Other than those 2 games, this team is rolling. 7 of those 9 wins are by 5 points or more. Arizona has been decidedly worse on the road. This isn't a dome, but it's still on the road, in a lot of people say the loudest stadium in the league. So, yeah, -3.5. I'm going to grab it while it's there for Minnesota. I still believe in Sam Darnold, Aaron Jones, Jefferson. They have a lot of weapons on offense. I think this defense is a little overachieving too. This is kind of a matchup of overachievers But I like it that it's in Minnesota and you're laying still under 4 points.
Anybody else comment on that game? We'll move forward. I have the Rams -2 against the Saints, and the Rams are a really specific team. Last week, I was terrified for them, rightfully so, because their offensive line and pass blocking struggles. And Matthew Stafford, you see, when he gets quick pressure against him, his game falls apart. And that's what the Eagles bullied them all over the field, and it was a real problem. Obviously, they get blown out. Well, Saints are a different story. The Saints are at home. I give them that. But here's the problem. The Saints do not generate any reliable pass rush. So despite the offensive line woes, Stafford to be kept clean. Also, the receivers, Kupp and Nakua, they match up very well with the Saints secondary. Obviously, they traded Lattimore away. Adebo's a bigger corner on the outside. This is a very solid matchup. Also, the Saints have had very massive struggles against the run. So this could be a multifaceted offensive game. And then the other side of the ball, I give the Saints a lot of credit. Clint Kubiak has done a really nice job with Derek Carr, rolling him out, using play action, and getting him to get some of those downfield strikes. The problem against the Rams is this. The Rams have not a dominant pass rush, but they have a group of pass rushers. So it's not like you can just slide one player over. And if they're rolling them out, they're going to have pressure coming from either of those sides. And I think Carr gets hemmed in, and I don't think he gets the advantages he's had in some games. And when that happens and Derek Carr's under real pressure, we know the story. He falls apart quickly. I think the Rams win this one easily. They're favored by 2. I'd be stunned if they won by less than a touchdown. Anybody else have a thought on this game? And we'll move to round number 3. Bill and Adam both like the Steelers +3 against the Bengals. Bill, start, and Adam, you can pile on.
Well, Adam will give you all the important stats and analysis and insight that I lack. What I don't lack is the knowledge that Pittsburgh has won 4 straight as getting points, and the Bengals have failed to cover 4 out of the last 5 games at home. Cincinnati is trending in the wrong direction. That a 1-score loss to the Chargers, a 1-point loss to the Ravens, blew a 21-point lead in that game. Pittsburgh's not going to come back and score 21 points on anybody, but they're not going to be in a hole either. Mike Tomlin, they cry elements. I'll give him that one. I'll give him the Cleveland game. I actually took the Browns money line on that one. Jameis inspired me. So I'm going to give the Steelers their mulligan. This is another AFC North matchup. Not as much hate here as there is with Cleveland. I just see the Bengals just kind of continuing their disintegration and their downgrade. And, Pittsburgh keeping it close, probably kicking 7 field goals to win this one.
Go ahead and pile on, Adam Thompson.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what he said. I think, that snow globe game last week, weather is a great equalizer for the underdog. And that's kind of what we saw. And that's that's their only loss, the Steelers, that's been by more than a field goal. So they're getting 3 points here at Cincinnati, a team that is 0-6 straight up against teams who are actually in playoff contention. So they're just finding ways to not win. Pittsburgh, is just kind of that guily, veteran-y team that just finds the ways to win. They don't even have to score touchdowns, and they win games. Like Bill said, the Steelers, they're undefeated as underdogs this season. They've covered in 4 straight as underdogs. 2 of those were on the road. So yeah, I like Pittsburgh. I think just the mettle of this team, the makeup of this team is just more impressive than what Cincy's been able to do. I don't know if that's coaching. I think they might have something to do with it. If it's defensive toughness, might have something to do with it. Reliable run game, that too. Joe Burrow is obviously the best quarterback in this game. They have better wide receiving core. But other than that, I think you can look at Pittsburgh as just being the better team and getting a field goal for them in this situation. I like that.
Nick Whalen, your Jacksonville Jaguars had a week off last week, so we didn't get to bet against them. But I bet you're going to bet against them right now. And if you had any other comments also on the Steelers game, feel free to add those as well.
Yeah, Steelers Bengals to me is such a stay away. I think you guys stated it well. Cincinnati just continues to find ways to lose by like a field goal every time they play a good team. I just wonder if at some point the desperation element kicks in. They will have T. Higgins back for this game again. I could kind of see Cincinnati, finding a way to hang around in that AFC playoff picture. I'm actually on the Titans here this week, Jim. Although I have some Jaguars thoughts maybe we could talk about at the end, but I like the Tennessee Titans to cover the 5.5. Against the Washington Commanders this week.
The Commanders, my bad.
Yeah, I do worry that this one it'll be popular. It feels like you're buying high on Tennessee, you're selling low on Washington. I totally get all that, but I think it's reasonable, man. I think Tennessee, has been on this streak of obviously, they only covered for the second time this year, this past week against Houston, and needed a wild sequence of plays to end up pulling out that game. That's kind of who the Titans are. But a lot of their recent losses have been closer than you might think, closer than the final score would indicate. Yardage-wise, they're hanging in with a lot of teams. And I think this is a really good matchup defensively for the Tennessee Titans, who the one redeeming quality this team has, they are excellent against the run. They are top 5 in the NFL in terms of rush defense EPA. And we know this Washington team, they want to build things through the running game, and it's really struggled the last couple of weeks. I mean, they couldn't get anything going against Pittsburgh. They couldn't get anything going on the ground against Philly. Yeah, they were able to run on Dallas. A lot of that was Jaden Daniels, but that's the Dallas Cowboys. That might be the worst run defense in the entire NFL. We also have injuries on the Washington side. I don't know if Brian Robinson or Austin Eckler are going to be out there. Robinson had 2 separate injuries that caused him to leave the game last week. Eckler got a concussion late in the game, excuse me, on a kickoff return. It's a second concussion of the year. I think there's a pretty good chance he won't be out there. They also had 2 starting offensive linemen leave that game with concussions. Tyler Biadasz, their center, and Andrew Wiley, their right tackle. So Washington comes into this game having lost 3 in a row. They're bruised and battered. They're not going to be able to get to their bread and butter offensively, which is that run game. And I think you're asking a lot now to basically put this entire game on Jaden Daniels' shoulders. So the contrast to this is you're betting on Will Levis. I understand that. I think Levis has actually played reasonably well the last few weeks, dare I say. He only had 1 pick 6 last week against Houston. Got to give him credit for that. 3 total turnovers, of course, for the Tennessee Titans. But I think they keep this game close. I think it's relatively low scoring. Give me the Titans plus the 5.5.
Anybody else have a comment on that game? Then I will go to the Denver Broncos minus 5.5 at home on Monday Night Football against the Cleveland Browns. Yes, I know the Browns beat the Steelers. And I know a number of weeks back, they beat the Ravens. They also beat the Jaguars. Who doesn't? But what's the theme? The 2 big wins, divisional games. We talk about it all the time. Divisional games, they're a completely different breed. These teams hate each other. They know each other. They play differently. Well, this is the divisional game. And the Browns, other than that Jacksonville win, have got hammered in every other non-division game this year. And the Broncos have an elite defense and playing at home. They stop the run. Their cornerbacks are excellent. Their pass rush is versatile. The Browns are not equipped offensively to deal with this. Jameis Winston's had a couple nice moments, but we even saw it in the New Orleans game. Even that team that doesn't have much pressure, when they even had the idea it might be coming, he fell off the rails. And I think in this game, Winston's going to be running for his life, and that's not going to be a good situation. Now, on the other side of the ball, the Broncos probably can't run the ball here. Their running game has been sporadic. The Browns have been good against run, but here's the thing. The corners, and they play a lot of man coverage there, they have been blowing coverages right and left all year long. And Sean Payton, the coach of the Broncos, is going to have seen the film and is going to use a lot of man beaters in this game from his receivers combinations. And this is one where Bo Nix is a distributor. And if it's drawn out for him, he's able to execute it. And the pressure's been decent, but the offensive line of the Broncos should hold up enough to give Nix time because he gets it out quickly. So I do think the Broncos are just in such a different class, and the Browns coming up with that big divisional win. I just think the Broncos win by at least a touchdown here. Anybody else have a comment on that game?
The Broncos defense bowed up, had a 1st and goal to hold on the spread against Vegas on Sunday. Mm-hmm. They sacked Desmond Ridder to hold the cover. I might want to check some DraftKings accounts there, but credit to the Broncos for holding on to that cover. That was impressive, and made me comfortable backing them last week and probably this week as well.
Yeah, it was a sweat on that one for sure. And in that whole fourth quarter, it was a game that they had Denver. And like you said, there were multiple occasions where the Raiders actually scored earlier. It's like, come on, can you shut these guys down? And like you said, when they needed it, they did. Nick, you have a comment as well? Or no?
I just think this is another game that lines up well defensively for Denver, as most games do. But the Cleveland Browns can't run the ball. Denver's excellent at stopping the run in general, but it doesn't seem to matter who the Browns face. They can't move it on the ground. So this is one of those games that you're putting on the arm of Jameis Winston. He's going to have to be thrown at Pat Surtain if he wants to have any success. I would say good luck with that. I think the Browns are probably a little bit overvalued right now coming off of that win and just a bizarre environment, against Pittsburgh. So I do see this as kind of a comeback down to earth spot for Cleveland. So I'm with you, Jim, riding the Broncos on the 5.5.
All right, let's get some final thoughts here. Bill Speros, kick us off.
Well, one team I didn't mention this week, I don't think I've mentioned them in a while, is Tampa Bay. They're scoring a lot. They got Mike Evans back. The team total this week is 26.5 at Carolina. They've traditionally struggled there, even when Brady was playing. But I just think that offense is clicking. They're 7-4 on the line, and they're 7-4 on the over this year too. So if you're looking for a total, you might want to take a look at Tampa Bay. They seem to have really, they're plus 2,200 to win the NFC if you're looking for a long shot there. They're playing really well, and they're on the back end of the tiebreaker against Atlanta, but I think they can still take that division.
Adam Thompson, final thoughts.
Well, if you're looking for additional Thanksgiving Day trends to back, just back the favorites. They have won over the last 20 years. They've straight up won over 80% of the games. They've covered 2/3 of them over the last 20 years. If you're favored by 10 or more, they've covered all of those games over the last 20 years. No team favored by 10 or more has not covered on Thanksgiving since at least 2004.
I love that. Nick Whalen, final thoughts.
I don't know. I could follow that. That's a great poll. Some great numbers from Adam. First of all, I agree with Bill on the Bucks. I think, he mentioned winning the NFC. I don't know if I go quite that far, but plus 190 to win the NFC South. I think this is a team that I trust more week to week than the Atlanta Falcons. And this leads into my bonus play of the week. LA Chargers. Take them on the money line if you want. Take them -1 if you're feeling that. But I think they win this game on the road in Atlanta. I know it's a short week coming off a loss on Monday night. Falcons are off a bye. I don't know that it matters. I mean, this Falcons team just came out completely dead in what felt like not a must-win game, but a big opportunity to give themselves a needed cushion in the division before the bye against the Denver Broncos. Never competed at any point in that game. And I think the Chargers right now, despite that loss to Baltimore, they're rolling. This is a bad Falcons defense. I think they're going to be able to run. They're going to be able to throw on the Falcons. I think this is a number that, in my opinion, probably rises maybe a point over the next couple of days. So if I had to add another pick to my card, it would be the LA Chargers to win that game on the road at Atlanta.
And the Chargers may well win that one, but just be careful with Atlanta, because Atlanta, when Kirk Cousins faces heavy pressure, the offense self-destructs. In that last game against Denver, I thought it was a styles make fights, and I thought they had no chance because of that pressure. I don't know. We'll see if Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, who, if he plays, can kick it up. But I do like that call on that. My final thought is this. Teams change multiple times, not all teams, but many teams during the NFL season. The Seattle Seahawks, we thought they were a bad run defense earlier in the season. Then we saw them struggle against the pass. And then all of a sudden, Mike McDonald, the team trades for Ernest Jones. Like, Ernest Jones is the third team in 4 months. Well, Ernest Jones is a very good blitzing linebacker. And he has basically helped Mike McDonald unlock a lot of the confusing looks he likes to throw at offense. And all of a sudden, Seattle has played very well on defense the last couple of weeks. This could be a brand new team. And then we look at the Eagles. The Eagles, we thought going into the season, this is a bottom 10 defense. Right now, good luck finding a team that's significantly better than on defense, because they're good against the run, they're good against the pass. So as you're betting, it's the week-to-week understanding where these teams are at a given moment. It's not always just injuries. Sometimes teams grow throughout a season. Coaches improve. And that's just the last thing I want to add to that is happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you for hanging with us every Thursday. It's very fortunate we get to talk football with you. Hope everybody has a great time with their loved ones. Enjoy some football. Let's recap the picks for this week. Bill Speros has the Cowboys on Thanksgiving -4, then the Seahawks and the Steelers. Adam Thompson agrees with Bill on the Steelers, goes with the Packers on the cold Thanksgiving night game, and then the Vikings -3.5. Nick Whalen will go with the Seahawks, agreeing with Bill Speros on that one. Nick also likes the Raiders on Black Friday, getting 13.5. And then finally, the Tennessee Titans getting 5.5. I'm going with the Bears on Thanksgiving +10.5. The Broncos on Monday Night Football -5.5. And then the Rams -2. This has been the Bookies Plus Weekly Gambling Show. Be sure to bookmark bookies.com/picks so you can check out our free picks for both NFL and other sports. We'll have a new episode every Wednesday. Again, we did a Tuesday this week for the remainder of the NFL season. We will see you next Wednesday.